I'm 40 years old, and my wife is 41. Over the years, my job has often required me to travel, while my wife holds the position of an executive secretary. After 17 years of marriage, my wife surprised me with a request to explore an open marriage. This caught me completely off guard, as I had never anticipated such a proposal. Fortunately, we don't have kids, so I don't have to explain to them what an open marriage is and what it's for. Throughout our relationship, my wife has faced some issues that prevented her from having children. Despite that, I've remained faithful and committed to her, believing it to be mutual. However, she seems to feel limited in our marriage and wants something more. I'm currently experiencing a mixture of emotions, anger, hurt, and a sense of betrayal. While I don't like the idea of an open marriage, I also don't want to lose my wife. Despite my reluctance and with a heavy heart, I agreed to an open marriage but with certain rules. We agreed that neither of us will invite anyone to our homes. We have access to each other's phones to promote transparency and avoid secrets. If either of us decides to become intimate with other partners, it is mandatory to use protective equipment. Despite finalizing these ground rules, I can't shake off the feeling that I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. After agreeing to the open marriage, my wife mentioned feeling relieved, as if a weight had been lifted off her. However, I feel the opposite. The mere thought of someone else being able to touch her is mind-boggling. I'm not sure what to do in this situation or if it's even within my power. What I am sure of is my deep love for my wife. To navigate this new territory, we decided to sign up for a dating app and we chose Tinder. We studied each other's dating profiles, identifying those who seemed not only attractive but also open to additional partners. After a while, we checked each other's cell phones. To my surprise, I didn't find a single match in my profile, while my wife's experience was quite different. My wife had accumulated over 100 matches on Tinder, but almost half of them were single men. She realized that chatting with single men didn't align with the limits we had set, so she eliminated those matches. This pattern continued for about a week until we met another couple also considering an open marriage. My wife was attracted to the other woman's husband, who was impressively tall and in great shape. The woman, although a little overweight, was attractive. It was fascinating to discover that people all over the world are in open marriages. A few days later, we received a message from the couple expressing interest in meeting, and we agreed to meet at a nearby cafe. The first encounter sparked an immediate attraction, making us all feel comfortable. We exchanged contact information, and a week later went out for dinner together. Eventually, we visited their home for some fun. During this encounter, the other woman and I hit it off, sharing a first kiss with smiles on their faces. My wife and the other man retired to a private room. A few hours later, we reconvened in the living room, laughing and discussing the experience. It turned out that, for all of us, this was a first, and by common consent, we decided to repeat the experience the following weekend at our house. While I'm still grappling with my comfort level regarding this decision, my wife's happiness is paramount to me. However, as the days passed, I began to notice that my wife was breaking one of the established rules, showing secrecy and using her phone. I decided to talk about it, and she explained that she was keeping in touch with people she met on Tinder. I expressed that such communication was not within the agreed-upon limits and asked her to give me her phone for verification. Although hesitant at first, she eventually handed it over. Upon looking through her messages, I discovered that she had sent sexually explicit pictures to several guys, and she was communicating with them, seemingly all single. I was overcome with anger, unable to believe she could break the rules we had established. I discussed the situation with her, and her response was that she was just having fun. I confronted my wife about her explicit messages and secretive behavior with her phone. When I asked her how she would feel if I sent explicit pictures to other women, she admitted she would be upset. I pointed out that my feelings mirrored hers at that moment. We agreed that she should erase all messages, delete photos, and cease communication with these people. Despite her promise to honor this agreement, I struggled with trusting her again. The weekend we were supposed to meet, the couple got canceled, leaving us alone. My wife was disappointed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she might not be satisfied with our arrangement and wanted to socialize with other people. After dinner, back at home, her phone continued to ring and she engaged in secretive behavior again. When I asked about the calls, she brushed them off, claiming they meant nothing. Skeptical, I picked up her phone and discovered she had resumed sending explicit pictures and messages. Frustrated, I told her that if she continued to violate our arrangement, we would have to reconsider the open marriage. Upset, she relented and promised to stop, but I wasn't sure I could trust her words. The next day, when I came home from work, my wife wasn't home. When she arrived, I inquired about her day and asked to see her phone. After looking through it, I found no indication of any secret conversations. Another week passed, and I noticed my wife pulling away from me. We hadn't seen the couple we had been chatting with since the canceled weekend. Her secretive behavior with her phone resurfaced for the third time, leading me to express that I wanted to end the open marriage. She disagreed, stating that she didn't want to end it. She found pleasure in being involved with another man and wanted to continue, believing it added a spark to our relationship. I reached the conclusion that my decision was final, recognizing that my wife didn't seem to care about my feelings. Despite my initial discomfort with the idea of an open marriage, I moved forward with my choice. The next day, while my wife was at work, I contacted a moving company to arrange the transportation of my belongings. I informed them of my urgent need to leave the house. Typically, my wife would get home around 6 p.m., and I expected her by 7 p.m. I managed to pack my belongings and left the house shortly before 7 p.m. I moved into a fully furnished house my father had given me, needing only to buy a TV, which I accomplished by about 8 p.m. Meanwhile, my wife kept calling, getting worried when she realized I wasn't home. I calmly explained that I did not support the idea of an open marriage and believed it was better for us to go our separate ways. Despite her pleas and requests to come home, I was determined that our relationship was over. I moved out and had no intention of returning. A few days passed, and she came to talk to me, begging for another opportunity. I reiterated that I would not go back to her due to her obvious disregard for my feelings and lack of empathy. It became clear that she was primarily interested in her own preferences. She brought up marriage counseling, hoping we could save our marriage by resolving contradictions. However, I refused, seeing no point in spending money on counseling. Instead, I decided to consult a divorce lawyer. When I informed her of my decision, she left the house in tears, apologizing and begging me to change my mind. In response, I told her I would think about it. A few weeks later, I spoke to a lawyer expressing my desire for a divorce. He asked me for the whole story and mentioned that, given our lack of children, the process shouldn't be too difficult. I consulted my attorney about alimony payments and expressed my disinterest in keeping the house. I offered 3 other houses as part of the divorce settlement. However, the attorney couldn't provide a definite answer on alimony, mentioning it was up to the judge. Considering my wife's good income, he suggested the alimony amount might not be substantial. I assured him of my decision regarding the house, as I owned 3 other homes outright, deeded to me by my father before our marriage. A few weeks later, my wife was officially served with divorce papers, accusing me of being unreasonable. The divorce hearing concluded swiftly, and I conceded the house to her. Surprisingly, the judge ruled that I would pay alimony of $500 per month for 6 years. Despite my ex-wife's attempt to get a larger amount, the judge considered her substantial earnings and deemed it unnecessary. After the hearing, I gained my freedom, paying little attention to my ex-wife's attempts to apologize. About 4 weeks later, I received a call from another couple practicing open marriage, informing me that my ex-wife was dating her husband. I clarified that we had finalized our divorce a month ago. Unexpectedly, she offered to come over for some fun, but I politely declined, expressing that I wasn't ready to rush into anything. 3 weeks later, the same woman contacted me again, expressing her distress about her husband and my ex-wife growing closer. She didn't know what to do, and I comforted her. Although there was an opportunity for an affair, I decided against it. Eventually, the couple reconciled, and I learned that the husband ended his relationship with my ex-wife to stay with his wife. Reflecting on my experience, I hadn't initially planned to share it, but something compelled me to do so. The prevalence and popularity of open marriages and relationships surprised me, and it's challenging for me to understand. I appreciate you listening to the story, and if you enjoyed it, please support us with a like.